What you're talking about is the middle class trap, is what I call it, right? And what we find is that a lot of Americans have maybe a couple $100,000 in net worth. Maybe some of these folks have that, maybe even $1 million in net worth. But most of that net worth is going to be in their home equity and their retirement accounts. And why is that? Well, because every month they bought a big, nice house, probably the nicest, biggest one they could afford. They put a huge chunk of down, even if it was a tiny percentage of the purchase price, it was a lot of their liquidity. And then every month, a tremendous amount of their cash flow goes to that mortgage payment. So that is the largest investment that they're making is this house on an ongoing basis. And then also, most people, not most, but many of the middle class automate their 401k contributions. It's like, yeah, I should probably do that when I sign up, and therefore I'm going to take the match or max it out or whatever. And so you have all this money in your retirement accounts. That's great. That feels responsible. It feels like I'm doing all the right things, but you're stuck. You have no freedom with that, right? You could have $1 million. And we've talked to people like this on the BP Money Show podcast, where we kind of review finances and stuff. It's like, you're a millionaire, but you have no freedom. You're literally almost living paycheck to paycheck because you have, a 500,000 home equity, 750 in your retirement accounts, 20 grand in the bank, and you spend 15 a month, right? So you're broke within a month unless you're starting to draw down those retirement accounts or sell your house. And once you realize that, okay, the goal is to avoid that situation. I'd much rather be the guy with, 100 grand in my retirement accounts and 900,000 in 3 rentals plus a stock portfolio after tax. That's a much more flexible, freeing position that you can get yourself in.
Yeah! What's up, everybody? Your life alchemist, your dragon. Welcome to Alchemize Life. I'm your host, Justin David Carl. This is a show where I seek out and share expertise, wisdom, and thought leadership in all domains with the mission of empowering and inspiring you to proactively design and truly live a life worth living. We're all in this together, and when we do the work together, we go so much farther, so much faster, and have so much more fun. Without further ado, let's dig into this episode and alchemize life. Scott Trench, so good to have you on the show, brother. It's been a while since I've seen you virtually, and even longer since I've seen you in person at Camp 5 back in 2018. Let's start with the story. Share one of your sports stories when you're really young.
Well, great. I was in high school. I was a wrestler, and our team was pretty good. My junior year, we made it to the region finals. This is a dual meet, so I think it was 14 of us each wrestle, 14 kids from the other team, and it's a lottery. I was the 171 weight class, and I happened to go last that day. And our team, all I had to do was win, and we would go to the state championship. So I'm wrestling this guy, and I'm beating him. So I'm beating him pretty good. He's really tall, and I'm beating him 8-4 is the score, right? And you score points by taking the other guy down. You score points by putting them on their back. You can also win immediately by pinning the opponent in wrestling. So, anyways. With 30 seconds left, all I got to do is not have anything happen, and we go to the state championship. I attacked the guy. I don't know what I was thinking, but I attacked the guy. He throws me to my back, and he gets 2 points for taking me down, and 2 more points for a temporarily putting me on my back on the mat. Overtime. I do the exact same thing in overtime. He throws me to my back and takes me down, and he wins. And our entire team loses the region championship. We don't go to states. So the next day, we sit there, and my coach pulls out the film projector, and we don't watch everybody else's match. We just watch my match in silence for about 10, however long it took, 10 minutes or so. And afterwards, we're talking. What do we do when we're 4 points away from going to the state championship, and we're up 8-4 here? And I was like, I probably shouldn't have attacked. He says, "You do anything else? You run to the freaking concession stand. You don't do that." So for the rest of practice, I had to run to and from the concession stand. So there was a little bit more to the season after that. There's still individual tournaments and such. So yeah, that was my perhaps most humiliating sports moment of my career. Actually, there have been more, but that was one humiliating moment in my wrestling career.
So you weren't always hot shot, big CEO of BiggerPockets, is what you're telling me.
No, I was the low life who blew our whole team's chance at the state championship in high school wrestling. Whoopsies. Some people probably don't find that as funny as I do
Yeah.
nowadays, but yeah.
Well, you've definitely come a very long way, and I'm really excited to have you on the show because, as I mentioned kind of in the opening, you and I first met in 2018 at Camp Fi, which is kind of like a money camp or financial independence camp for people who are interested in pursuing financial freedom. And I had just discovered the concept of financial independence at the very end of 2017, and I was incredibly passionate about it. And you were one of the guest speakers, and you spoke about your book that you had written recently, Set for Life, and just outlined some really genius things that I wish I had done when I was younger. I didn't really reach financial independence till around age 37 versus the age that you reached it, probably almost a decade, if not earlier, than I did. So going back to the beginning, can you kind of share your origin story of financial independence and entrepreneurship, and how you've actually got to becoming the CEO of BiggerPockets?
Yeah, so I started my career in 2013 and joined I was a financial analyst at a Fortune 500 company. I immediately realized I did not want to do that, and I discovered financial independence, Mr. Money Mustache, and BiggerPockets sometime in late 2013 or early 2014, and just quickly immersed myself in that. I'm like, this is it. I want to have control over my life, freedom, right? And this is a path to do that. I can frugal my way to doing it. I can buy real estate and get passive income, and I can cross this modest level of financial freedom, this hurdle, and do whatever I want with all of my day for the rest of my life. So I decided to buy a property, and in late 2014, I bought a property, and I also happened to meet Josh Dorkin, the founder of BiggerPockets, in 2014 while networking with local real estate investors. And Josh offered me a job at BiggerPockets ultimately. So I joined BiggerPockets as the then third or early employee, third true full-time employee. There are plenty of other folks that have been there longer that are contractors or major participants in the business, but joined it in 2014 as the director of operations at this tiny startup that I had been really infatuated with and really been obsessing over the content in BiggerPockets. And so by the end of 2014, I had this new job at a startup, and that first little house hack, little dumpy house hack, I bought for $240,000. Each side rented for $1,100. Well, the other side had a cat, so they paid $1,150. My mortgage was $1,550. So I'm paying a little bit as a tenant, or not paying, but my portion would have been $550. So I'm essentially living for free or very close to it at that point in time, and that began the real estate investing journey. I was able to put $12,000 down on that property, 5%, and get the whole snowball started. And over the next several years, speeding up to 2018, I was able to steadily increase my income. I did ad sales for BiggerPockets for our podcasts, and the podcast grew. So I was able to sell more and more of the inventory, and that increased my commissions. I took on more responsibility, got raises, those types of things. I bought more property. I invested in index funds and snowballed that into, I would say a modest level of financial freedom in the middle of 2018 to some degree. That would be when was I free, truly and financially independent? Was I not? It was close at that point. So that,
Mm.
I was right on that bubble. And at that point, Josh left the company full time. I became the president of BiggerPockets, and we brought on our private equity partners in McCarthy Capital. And at that point, I became the CEO. And that's been, where I was in 2018, I flew far beyond that over the next 2, 3, 4 years. My financial position has gotten bigger and bigger. And I think similar to your story, I would say it's become less and less relevant as the primary goal, where you're trying to fill in all these other boxes and figure out what is the purpose of what I'm trying to do here. What does my life look like? So how's that for a quick overview of my journey?
Super good. Couple questions about it. Very succinct. You're getting really good at telling your journey in a very quick manner. How old were you when you did that first house hack?
I was 23, turning 24.
Okay. And essentially, you had like saved up that money through the job that you hated.
I didn't really, did I hate the job? Yes, sort of. I hated the idea of the career in that field. Yeah.
Like
Um,
climbing the ladder, or what do you mean by
yeah,
that?
I didn't hate my coworkers or anything. They were nice people and we had a nice work environment, but yeah, I didn't like the idea of just spending 20, 30 years in that environment, slowly progressing within, my spreadsheets or whatever with that. So, but how did I collect the money? In college, I probably graduated with $10,000 between summer jobs and that kind of stuff. No debt, thanks to my parents who paid for my college. And I spent a good chunk of that on a Euro trip right after college with a couple of buddies. So I started my career with $3,000 in the bank and no debt. And so I was able to turn that into maybe $25,000 over the course of the next year by saving from the job, trying to live frugally, living in a cheap apartment, doing some odd jobs, driving for Uber, trying to, a couple of small business ideas that never really went anywhere, like a t-shirt company. But that's how I got that first, let's call it 20 to 25 grand that I was able to then use to put down on the property.
Gotcha. So if I got the timeline right, you were like fi or lean fi by around age 27, 28.
Yeah. I think that's right. That I think the definition of FI I've learned is an ever evolving one. It's a moving
Yeah.
target. But yes, I think that's a fair statement.
On that note, how do you currently, I guess, how did you originally define financial independence, and then how do you define it now for yourself?
Could my passive income cover my expenses in a bare bones environment? Was I
Mm,
think the first answer. Now I think it's, do I have a very large sustainable surplus over my
mm,
living expenses?
gotcha. Now, why is that important to you now, having that very large surplus?
I don't think it necessarily is that important to me right now. I think that I like my job. I This is a cool job. We've got a cool business at BiggerPockets. It's helping a lot of people. It's fun. It's also very lucrative. So, for me, I get paid a high salary. I benefit when the company increases in value or generates more cash flow. So my pile is getting bigger. So I got to do something with the money, right? So I got to do something with it. And so why not create a diversified portfolio that produces a significant abundance with that cash, if I'm not gonna if I'm going to earn it. So I think that, and that may be a consequence a consequence that maybe a great outcome that many people who achieve FI early in life will experience at some point, because once you get to that baseline, everything else is surplus on top of that. It can be either invested or spent.
Yeah. One of the things I've noticed about the people that achieve FI really early, like I would call 27, 28 pretty early. I've also had Cody Berman on the show, who was pretty much, a millionaire by 25.
Mhm.
Is it seems like they like did it so young, but the truth is, like, both of you like put in a ton of time. In your case, by the time you're finished with college, you already had 3K saved up, and then you spent the next, call it 5 years being like almost fanatical about saving, investing, and growing your wealth, and being fairly frugal. On top of that, you also, it sounds to me like you tried several different entrepreneurial endeavors. I'm guessing most of which did not work out. You said your t-shirt thing. I think I heard on another podcast, as I was doing some research, that you started like a snow tire rental business or something like that, or almost did.
Yeah, I considered it. Yeah, I
Yeah.
put together the business plan and then got that shot down by some very smart investors.
So how many different kind of entrepreneurial business ideas did you come up with? And of those, like, how many did you actually try to execute before you ended up at Bigger Pockets?
Sure. So look, and I'll bucket all the initiatives in there, even though some of them are clearly not entrepreneurial, right? So I tutored. I would go to work, and then after work, I would go drive to this family's house and tutor their son in math or social studies or whatever with that to earn some extra money. I drove for Uber for a period of time. I considered a business for winter gloves for driving because it gets very cold and you want that, right? And then I considered a winter tire rental business, right? And I seriously explored that and tried to get a lot of ideas around that. I probably less seriously considered many other ideas that I've forgotten at this point. I started a t-shirt company. One of the t-shirts says it's Buddha, and he is saying to a hot dog vendor, "Make me one with everything." And the hot dog vendor is saying in return to him, "Sure, but change must come from within." I found this shirt very funny. It did not sell very well, except to friends and family. So I also had another one that had a giant windmill on it, and it said, "Renewable energy. I'm a huge fan." And so these shirts, they didn't really go far here. So the trenches tees did not break a profit. I think it's still up there on a Facebook page somewhere. And then I bought a house hack, and that one actually worked out, right?
Mm.
I joined BiggerPockets as at a startup, right? I think that's a major career initiative that's in the same scale of the types of decisions I was contemplating around that time, and that obviously was something that I got very lucky the day I met Josh Dorkin and got the opportunity to join this company. And then I also wrote a book a few years later with Set for Life, right? And so some of those initiatives ended up working out, and I would not have been able to articulate this at the time, but I've since kind of gone back and framed it, and it's like around every 90 days, I was trying a new concept pretty seriously. And they say that 9 out of 10 businesses fail. So if you start 10 businesses and you do it every 90 days, it's going to take you 2.5 years on average to hit some kind of winner with that. And then to your point, this was not an overnight thing, right? I was young. I was single. What am I? I was young. I'm still 32. I'm not that old. But yeah, I didn't have any obligations, and I just like my day was I'll work out. I'm going to try to crush a book almost every week for a full year. I'm going to go to work. I'm going to work my day job. Once the work is over, I'm going to spend 3 hours writing for the blog because I want to write for the blog and get my thoughts out there. And Josh wouldn't let me do that during my day job because it wasn't what he was paying me. And then I would go and move and go home to my house hack and begin fixing it up or whatever with that and repeat. And on the weekends, I would, crush a bunch of beers and have a good time. But but like that's an 80, 90, 100 hour week, even though I'm not necessarily working all those hours for the company, but oh, and by the way, I'm also on top of that trying to meet people. I had a goal of like trying to meet 1 or 2 people a week that were relevant in the industry and make those connections, grab coffee, whatever with that. And that sustained for 5 years. So, almost all of the outputs there came from real estate, from a financial perspective, came from real estate, and then my journey with BiggerPockets. But I have to believe that sustaining that for another couple of years would have eventually yielded some good outcomes towards the goals I had set.
Yeah. Now, did you ever set out with the goal to become a part of some sort of startup that was interesting to you, or was that more like luck that the opportunity appeared and you were like, "Oh, I want to get into real estate, so this is like a perfect way for me to kind of immerse myself into that world."
I think there is no way that I would have lasted another 5, 10 years at my job without making a change.
Hmm.
I would have almost certainly gone into something that had the potential to scale in my mind. So I think that I would have seriously explored franchises or buying a small business or joining a startup, those types of things. The actual decision point to join BiggerPockets, I had two options. One at BiggerPockets, the other as an agent at a brokerage.
Mm.
And I know some peers who actually joined that same brokerage, and they've done very, very well. So I think I actually ended up having two fairly good options at that point in time that both would have been great career opportunities. I'm very glad I chose the BiggerPockets option, of course.
Yeah.
So, but it's funny to go look at that. Those are kind of like pivotal decisions and say what would have happened if this outcome. Oh, and there's a path to $250,000 to $300,000 a year in annual income from that job. So
Yeah, that's definitely a subject I want to cover in this interview with you is the power of like sales and commissions to like hyper growth your journey to financial freedom. So in your mind, like in addition to, you know, potentially getting into real estate, because essentially that's like a sales job, if you're selling properties and making a commission on that, doing ad sales, like what are other kind of roles in sales that you see are, both interesting and highly lucrative for someone in the beginning of the career, say like post college, like shortly after graduating?
that's a really good question. I think that places with a great sales training program can be good. Becoming an agent can be good. Going into being a lender, broker, the brokerage space can be great. I think that if you go to these big corporations that do sales as an entry level person, they've probably figured out their commission structure, and so they know how to create the environment where you can the bands are very clear in what you can make.
Hmm.
That's great. You can earn a lot of money with a lot of hustle, but in places that are fairly new, there's much more risk, but there's also much more inefficiency, right? So you're not going to go to Verizon and sell and have the same upside potential as come into bigger pockets with hey, here's the commission pool, but the size of that of the potential here is growing at 30%, 50% a year. That's a reward of joining a smaller enterprise. So there's just always trade-offs, I think, in that. I think that one of the mindset things to have going into a sales environment is you're giving up base salary, right? Most great salespeople could probably go and make a higher base salary than what they get paid, or they may not get any base salary in many cases at another gig. And so you have to live below your means. You have to live
Mm.
below a minimum projected amount of sales income. And not a lot of salespeople do that. I know they don't. But if you're trying I think if you're very financially responsible, you're going to spend much less than the commission income you're going to bring in every year because you're going to project out less than that. And so I believe that living a very low cost lifestyle is directly correlated for me, or maybe people who think the way I do, with the optionality of a sales career.
Yeah.
Because if I spend 30K, I just need any job that covers 30K in base spending and then offers me the absolute maximum upside after that.
Yep.
And that's very powerful. If I had spent 60K, I would want a job that paid 60K. And the upside that comes with a 60K base salary is going to be dramatically different than one that might come with a base of 30 for the people with the same skill set bracket.
Hey there, just a few words about the incredible show sponsors for today's episode, and then we'll dig right back in. Today's show is brought to you by Veg Nutrition. Live better. So I'm actually a veg elite athlete, and before I joined the team, I spent months doing my due diligence to make sure that the company was vision, mission, and value aligned with me, my values, my mission, my vision, and my lifestyle. I got to know the owners super well. I even got to know the person who formulates all the products, and they passed with flying colors. So I couldn't be more excited to represent a company that I feel so aligned with. And I want to tell you about two of my favorite products. The first is the veg pre workout. So when I first went vegan, or mostly vegan, the last thing for me to go fully vegan was finding a vegan pre workout that gave me the focus, the energy, and the power that I was looking for. And I can tell you, this is the best pre workout that I've ever had. It gives me incredible focus and energy. And what's probably the best is it leaves me with no crash after I take it, which is great. And the flavors are so freaking good. There's literally peach mango and a Patriot Pop that tastes like, the firecracker popsicles, cherry lemon lime flavor. They're literally so good that I can dry scoop them. And they just released a watermelon flavor for just in time for summer, and it's incredible. So that's the first product. The second product is arguably also my favorite, and that's the plant protein. Comes in three incredible flavors: chocolate peanut butter, vanilla ice cream, and cold brew coffee. Yep, you heard me. Cold brew coffee flavor. It tastes incredible, all three flavors, 25 grams of protein, fully organic, incredible ingredients, heavy metal tested, and it is my go-to post-workout. Make sure that I'm recovering and refueling and giving my muscles the protein that they need to rebuild for that next workout. So go to vegnutrition.com/dragon and try their full line of supplements, and you'll get 15% off. Or you can just use Dragon at checkout and you'll get 15% off. So that's vegnutrition.com/dragon to get 15% off. Veg Nutrition, live better. Yeah. Couple additional follow-on notes there. So you mentioned that like your friends who ended up going to the real estate brokerage firm, they're probably clearing 250 to 400,000 plus. I Same thing can be done in pretty much like any type of like technology business to business sales job.
Mhm.
So like I always recommend people like if you just want to radically improve your chances of like just really high income in the first few years, like get a job in tech, in sales, where the deal size is really large. You're selling multi-million dollar deals, within a year or two of you being there. And like, even if the commission rate is really low, your potential to earn, 200 to 500,000 plus is right there. And if you can do that at the beginning of your career, while you're keeping your expenses really low because you haven't inflated your lifestyle, like you can rocket your way to financial freedom in like a very short period of time.
Yeah, and keep that contact list.
100%.
Yeah, that's a great advice. I love that approach. That's probably been, I'm very glad I joined that. But if I had been making a rational decision at that point with all the facts, maybe I would have gone into something like that, not knowing what bigger pockets would have become. Because that's such a high probability bet what you just outlined there. If you're the kind of person who's going to hustle and make it work and can live on raisins and celery for a few. I know you don't do the rice and beans, so
I do
if you can.
do rice and beans.
Oh,
I
okay.
love
So, yeah,
rice and beans.
yeah. Okay, fair enough, yeah. So, rice and beans or raisins and celery, for the next couple years while you get that book of business built.
Yeah, the other thing that you did, and I did the same exact thing, is at startup companies in a sales role, oftentimes they have uncapped commissions because like you said, they haven't like fully like vetted out the commission bands and the earning bands. And so there's kind of like there's not a lot of structure. So if you go in and overperform like a beast, you can make like ridiculous amounts of money. And it has to go hand in hand, right? The startup company has to be doing well. But if you play a major part in that company doing really well, you will be paid handsomely for that. So I'm assuming that's kind of what you were doing at Bigger Pockets is you
Yeah.
saw an opportunity like, oh, I can make a ton of money in commissions here. And the more successful I am, the more I make. So you're like motivated by that. You are incredibly inspired and motivated by the idea of financial freedom, even though maybe at the time you don't realize, like, wait a minute, I actually really like the work I'm doing. Like, I don't need to race to it. But you're still like super motivated. What you did have uncapped commission?
Yeah, but I never got to the level you're talking about here with 200,000 plus in income, from that. Not in those first 4 years. So,
Yeah.
that was not that was not something that I got that close to, but I certainly had, like, be able to go to from 50 to 175, for example, in 2 or 3 years. That was really powerful for me. That was completely game changing.
Yeah, especially when you're keeping your expenses low. Now, keep in mind, like I was earning a lot more than that, but I also live in Northern California, Silicon Valley, Bay Area tech, where there's like tech millionaires and billionaires everywhere, and the cost of living is incredibly high. So there's multiple different ways to do it. Absolutely love that. So I'm curious now how you've been financially independent, essentially since 27, 28. You're 32 now. How has kind of your frugality and lifestyle and spending evolved over the last 3 to 4 years?
Yeah, so I finally, after 7 years, no longer house hack, and I have rented a nice apartment, here in Denver for the last, 2 years. I may buy a place at some point, but, because I'm not convinced I wanna settle down yet, in, like, a house. We'll probably rent for another couple years. But, yeah, I would say that it's evolved to a place where I guess I probably spend pretty similarly to a upper middle class family here in Denver, Colorado, right?
Hmm.
Things that I still drive my paid off Toyota Corolla, but we have a nicer apartment that's not a house hack. I'm not attempting to live for free. I let my portfolio pay for the rent there. You know, we go out to restaurants a couple times a month. I'm much less cautious about that kind of spending. I love to travel. I'll do 20 trips a year on a plane, probably 10 to 12 for business and 8 for pleasure, non-pandemics excluded. So starting to get back into that. And one of the big things is with childcare. So we're I find it more convenient to have someone come over to our house to watch the child directly than to drive to a daycare facility, for example, even though there's clearly a cost arbitrage there. And so we're very comfortable with making that decision. So it's just these things like, oh, it's a quality of life difference maker. I'm going to do it. Is it a luxury that I don't care at all about? I would like a Tesla at some point, but I got to wait for my Corolla to die, which will be in 20 years. I'm not gonna do that. So that's and one good example is I did trade in my wife's Ford Focus for a RAV4 recently because we want 4-wheel drive, be able to enjoy Colorado out here, that kind of stuff safely with a child. So those decisions don't that would have been a non-starter when I was 25. There's no way I would have increased the value of the car I have by 20 grand just for 4-wheel drive. Now it's not even a thought. It's okay, great. We're gonna go ahead and do that. So that's the difference. But overall, I live the same boring life that I love. Right? I work out a couple times a week. I come here at the office. I spend 40, 50 to 55 hours here at work doing things I love, getting better as a CEO, growing the business, helping people become financially free with real estate investing. And I go home, hang out with friends 1 or 2 nights a week, play some video games on the weekend, hang out with my baby and my wife the rest of the time. So
Yeah. It's hilarious, the Tesla comment, because I've been thinking the same thing. I have a paid off 2013 Prius. It's the nicest model with the fake leather seats. But I've been wanting a Prius, or excuse me, a Tesla. But something super interesting just happened to me in the last couple months. So I moved from Menlo Park to Santa Cruz, and I've talked about the Tesla, wanting to buy a Tesla on the podcast before. I actually lost my desire to
mhm.
buy a Tesla, because like now in Santa Cruz, I see so many people just driving like Ford trucks, that so they can carry their surfboards and their all their camping and outdoor bikes and all that stuff, or they're driving a Prius, and I'm literally just like, not even like, I'm like, do I actually need a Tesla? Like, was I just being influenced by my environment? Because like Menlo Park is like headquarters of like Facebook, Instagram, Google's not too far away in Mountain View, and there's like Teslas everywhere. And now I'm like, wait, do I actually really want a Tesla? And a part of me still wants it, but the degree to which I desire one has dropped probably by 70 to 80%, which has been pretty interesting.
Yeah, I don't want it that badly, which is why But yeah, from that, but it waxes and wanes. A few years ago, I really wanted one. Now I'm like, yeah, it's just
Yeah.
not that important. I'd rather. Here's what I'm going to do this year. So I am a big rugby fan, and the Rugby World Cup is going to be in France in
Mm.
2023, and my wife likes France. So we are going to probably figure out a way to go there for 2-3 weeks, and I would like to go to both of the semifinal games for the Rugby World Cup and the final. And that's the kind of expense I'd rather have rather
Mhm.
than a new car at this point in my life.
Yeah.
So that's what financial free that's one of the aspects of what financial freedom is to me is I don't do lots of lavish things, but I want to do that one. I can do it this year. And even if it's almost a car level of expense to make that experience happen.
Yeah. So I'm curious, I got a late start into financial independence, and one of the things really been thinking a lot about is like, obviously, if you're in your 20s, just finishing up college, there's several things that you can do that you really lay out for people in your book set for life, including house hacking, keeping your groceries like super low, and just like being as frugal as possible for that kind of first few years of your life until you like build up that nest egg of capital that you can then use to, invest, get into real estate, etc. But what about the people who are like in their like 30s or even 40s who are like they've kind of just been living this like life where they're 2 to 3 paychecks away from the financial house of cards falling down? Because I know a lot of salespeople who make 300 to 500,000 plus dollars a year, and they are 2 to 3 paychecks away from like if they lost their job, everything would fall apart because their house is leveraged, their cars are leveraged, and everything. I'm just curious, like the people who are getting a super late start. I know you've talked to tons of different people. You're very immersed in the world of financial independence and financial freedom. What are kind of some like ideas or thoughts or strategies that you would share or encourage someone who's getting a late start in their 30s or 40s?
Yeah, well, I think first we should acknowledge openly the much greater challenge that you have to deal with in that situation, right? It's not actually mathematically, if we're ruthlessly logical, that big of a challenge, but it is a challenge because this is not a logical or mathematical or whatever. This is your life, right? When I'm 23, I can go into a house hack that's a dumpy little piece of junk and fix it up and think nothing of it, and then I can go and have a bunch of beers downtown and stumble back home and crash on the thing and finally fix it up only when it's time to actually rent it out, right? But if I'm 35 and have a child or two and I'm married, I can't that's not an option that is as readily accessible to me. There is a spectrum of choices we can make along those. What you're talking about is the middle class trap is what I call it, right? And what we find is that a lot of Americans have maybe a couple $100,000 in net worth. Maybe some of these folks have that, maybe even $1 million in net worth. But most of that net worth is going to be in their home equity and their retirement accounts. And why is that? Well, because every month they bought a big, nice house, probably the nicest, biggest one they could afford. They put a huge chunk of down, even if it was a tiny percentage of the purchase price, it was a lot of their liquidity. And then every month, a tremendous amount of their cash flow goes to that mortgage payment. So that is the largest investment that they're making is this house on an ongoing basis. And then also, most people, not most, but many of the middle class automate their 401k contributions. It's like, yeah, I should probably do that when I sign up, and therefore I'm going to take the match or max it out or whatever. And so you have all this money in your retirement accounts. That's great. That feels responsible. It feels like I'm doing all the right things, but you're stuck. You have no freedom with that, right? You could have $1 million, and we've talked to people like this on the BP Money Show podcast, where we kind of review finances and stuff. It's like you're a millionaire, but you have no freedom. You're literally almost living paycheck to paycheck because you have a 500,000 home equity, 750 in your retirement accounts, 20 grand in the bank, and you spend 15 a month, right? So you're broke within a month unless you're starting to draw down on those retirement accounts or sell your house. And once you realize that, okay, the goal is to avoid that situation. I'd much rather be the guy with 100 grand in my retirement accounts and 900,000 in 3 rentals plus a stock portfolio after tax. That's a much more flexible, freeing position that you can get yourself in. So you have to think about that end state of your portfolio in mind and say, what are the actions I'm taking now and where are they going to lead me to in 10 years or 5 years? And if you start with that premise, you have to make a choice because most of middle class and upper middle class America cannot pay down a really nice home, max out their retirement accounts, and have lots of cash left over for liquidity for investments like real estate, small businesses, and after-tax brokerage expense. You have to choose. And that choice comes at an opportunity cost. If I don't buy the nice house, I'm going to live in a dumpy house hack for a couple of years. That's an opportunity cost that's really easy for a 25-year-old Scott to make. It's not one that I want to make at 32, right? If I max out the retirement accounts, I don't have cash to go and start that business. That's a challenge that faces you your whole career. And I think far too many people just blindly max out the retirement accounts. So what would I give advice to a person that's in that position, that's stuck there? I'd say, map out your portfolio and say, in 3 to 5 years, my wealth could be at this level. And if I keep doing what I'm doing, I'm on this trajectory. If I change it and, for example, stop contributing to my retirement accounts and begin allocating that to real estate or to after-tax stocks or to a franchise or a business that I want to buy, how does that change that picture? And is that more freeing? So that's how I'd frame the conversation there. But we'd have to acknowledge first, that's really hard.
Yeah, I got super lucky in the sense that I caught myself right before I was about to fall right back into the middle class trap, and I absolutely love that idea and that concept because I would say most of the middle class is stuck in that exact scenario. They earn decent to great money, but really they're very far away from financial freedom in certain senses. So, I went through that actually from my late 20s into my early 30s. I was making two to $300,000 a year. I was living in a super nice condo, driving a Range Rover. I was making a lot of money, but I wasn't saving anything. I was just kind of like living, eating out at the restaurants every day, like just buying new clothes all the time. I don't even know where the money went, honestly. When I left that first career, I literally had, I think, $20,000 saved, but I was also like, I don't know, $20,000 to $40,000 in college debt that I hadn't paid off yet. And then I started a new career and I started making a lot more money. And then it radically increased around age 35. And that's when I like first got into financial independence because what I realized is to get the financial independence, similar to you, like Mr. Money Mustache was my inspiration. So I read the shockingly simple math behind early retirement, and I was like, "What the fuck? I could like literally like never have to work for money again. Like if I, get my savings rate to like X percent." And so I literally made it my mission to get to like an 80 to 90% plus savings rate, which is ridiculous, especially in the Bay. But I was so driven, similar to you, by the concept of financial freedom that I figured it out. So as I was starting to make a lot more money, like significantly, like 500 plus a year, we could have moved into a much nicer home. We could have bought a nice home, which all my friends were doing. And I was like, no, we are going to get the financial freedom and then we can like talk about getting a nice house or living in a nicer house. So essentially, I went through the middle class trap once and then I wisened up and I was like, oh my God, here's an opportunity for me to like hit the reset button and not fall back into that. And I was able to become financially independent basically about in 2 years from the discovery of it because I just like kept my cost of living and I lived in the dumpy house. So similar to you, like I just moved into a nice house in September and like but I'm renting because I don't want to go purchase, a 1 to 2+ million home, because $1 million home in the Bay Area is like a crappy house, like,
Mhm.
which is ridiculous, but it is. And even though like I'm a multimillionaire, I'm not like a decamillionaire. So then suddenly all my wealth would go into home and I'd be trapped again. And I think people do this like in the Bay is they finally like get enough money and they use all their money to get that first home, which isn't even that nice. And then they're stuck and they have to like stay in jobs that they don't particularly like. They're super stressed about, kind of money month to month, even though they're in the Bay earning, 200 to 300 plus thousand a month, if not significantly more.
And you asked, how do you help somebody who's stuck in that situation? Well, if you want to become financially free, you got to sell the house,
Yeah.
sell your car, downgrade both of those pretty substantially, right?
Yep.
Start packing lunch to work. Do that. Grind for 3 to 5 years, right? Unless you have the ability, like Justin, to go out and make 500,000 to $1 million a year. That's not as accessible for most people, but many of these folks make 100, $200,000 a year. You can
Yep.
coast to financial freedom in 7 to 10 years on that level of income if you're willing to live like a middle class
Yeah.
lifestyle. Spend like you earn 60 or $70,000 a year, and you're gonna sock away 6 figures every year, and you're gonna rocket towards financial freedom, especially if you're willing to do a house hack. But like that's preposterous. People are not going to actually take the advice I just said and literally sell their home, downgrade substantially, sell their car, grind away for 5 years, which is what they're doing anyways, but just not getting ahead from a financial freedom perspective, and cramp their style like that. So the trap has to be avoided for the majority much earlier before we get to that point where we
Yeah.
have all this home equity and we have all this these retirement accounts and we're set in our ways. Otherwise, you know, the odds are, it is possible, but the odds are way lower for folks in that situation to get there rapidly.
Yeah, I really love this conversation because if we catch the people, the listeners who haven't purchased their home yet, this may just make them think, wait a minute. Like I've saved up two, three, $400,000 for a down payment, on a nice home in the Bay Area. Like, do I really want to like trap myself for the next 30, 40 years? And then, maybe we'll get lucky and a couple people will actually, who already bought the house will sell their house, but I'm not, it's a heck of a lot easier to avoid buying the house than it is to sell a house, I'm sure. So I really love that. Yeah, I sold my Range Rover and I didn't go out to eat for 2 years. I was incredibly hardcore about being frugal. Like, literally told my wife, like, "We're not going to the movie theaters anymore. Like, I don't wanna spend any money, on dining out." I was like, "You can continue to go out with your friends, but I wanna save all my money." And, initially, I went too hardcore with her, and then I realized she was okay with me going as hardcore as I wanted, as long as, like, she could kinda do some of the things, like going out to eat with her friends and, uh, you know, buying some new clothes here and there for herself. But we strategically, kept our money, separate so that we weren't feeling like, "Oh, she's spending my money or I'm spending hers," or whatever. So I'm curious, any kind of, comments or thoughts around, like, how do you start to have this conversation with your partner if, say, you are, you know, in your 30s, you're close to purchasing a home, you're married, you may or may not have a kid, and you just kind of like discover this like concept that like, wait a minute, I'm about to put myself in the middle class trap. Like, how would you recommend someone actually talk to their partner about this?
So yeah, I think it's tricky, right? And that's another, we used to have a matchmaking service on BiggerPockets called BiggerPockets Love to help you avoid the cash flow negative spouse. That was a joke. We don't actually do. No, that's one way. But I think the right way to handle this is to figure out a toolkit that will help you have this conversation productively, right?
Hmm.
Because it is weird to not buy the nicest house that your income bracket will allow you to afford, right? It's I just referred to it as a trap, but 90%, 98, 99% of the country will not feel that way about that purchase. That is the dream, is to buy the nice house and have
Hmm.
a nice life in that house, right, as early as possible. So here's a toolkit for avoiding that problem. First, and this is what I use. This is what me and my wife use, right? We have a document that is called a vision document. This is not like a fancy thing. This is, you know, we sit down, ideally in a beautiful place, coffee shop, something overlooked with a good view, have our coffee on a morning, and we sit down for a few hours and we say, what do we want our life to look like in 3 to 5 years? Like, what does it look like? What do you want your day to day to be like? What's our family like? Where are we living? What do we see when we look out the window? What do you do when you wake up in the morning? What do you do all day? What's a good weekend? What's a good work day if we want to work? Those types of things. What kind of toys do we have? Right. So we write that down, and this is a half page. I came into it the first time with draft vision. If you don't use the word draft, you risk completely pissing off the other party on this because they're going to be dictated. So, but if you're the kind of person that's going to plan this and put this up, that's a great tool. And you put together a compelling vision. You say draft. Hey, would you edit this with me on Saturday morning? Let's go to a coffee shop, our favorite one, or this place that has a really good sunset view, or whatever it is. Something that we're going to be feeling really good at, and that will help you. Okay, great. Are we aligned on that? Okay, now let's begin putting some goals in place that can help us begin moving towards that over the next 3 to 5 years, right? And or 7 years, or however long you want it out. It's whatever works for you that will make you feel like it's achievable and realistic, but it's not so far away that it's hard to realize. So this is a really powerful tool, right? How can someone argue with that definition, right? And you should have changes made by your significant other in this process. Otherwise, you're not having a healthy dialogue. Okay, now we have some things to discuss, right? Okay, in order to do that, if we buy this house, we're not going to be doing that, right? Or if we buy this house, we are going to be doing that, and we're set to go. All we got to do is just buy this house and pay it off over the next 5, 7 years, and we're going to be debt free and coast to financial freedom in the sunset in this beautiful home overlooking the Bay Area, whatever it is, right? So, and then hey, here's what I'm going to do for my career. Here's what I want to do for my family. Here's what I want to do for these. So that process is something that I revisit with my wife quarterly, and that keeps
Mhm.
us on the same page and helps us kind of course correct. We update it regularly. Almost every quarter, we're making at least some small modification to this vision. So it's always a moving target, but it's really helpful and it makes your life better in the meantime. So that's a toolkit I would posit for folks that are having that trouble getting their spouse on board.
Yeah, I think that is absolutely brilliant and really a gold mine because whether you're in a relationship or not, even if you're single, you come up that with yourself, and then you know before or shortly after you propose, you then like bring your partner. Hey, this is the vision I have. Like, what's your vision? Let's create like our collective vision. So I think that's really really powerful. And additionally, I love how open you are to changing and updating it because I think a lot of people they underestimate how much they will change over time. Like I think you're a great example. Like I don't think you necessarily, and maybe you did, but like, did you set out to be CEO of a company? Was that ever like in the plans, or were you initially just like, I just want to be financially free?
My goal was to become financially free, probably move a little bit beyond that into like the 1.5 to $2 million net worth range, have some passive income, and then hang out. Right? Like, I didn't really I wouldn't have really been able to articulate it much beyond that at that point in time, right? So that absolutely, my goals are completely different now than they were at that point in time, and what I wanna do with with my day and my life is completely different. I couldn't imagine just hanging out, playing video games all day, so I love to do that for a month sometime, but, like, I don't wanna do that for years and years or whatever. I wanna do something that is gonna I feel like I've got a skill set that I'm developing, I'm getting better at what I do as a leader and all that kind of stuff, and I want to deploy it. It's fun. It has an impact, and so yeah, it completely changes. So if you don't allow that to change and make it a living, breathing document, you're going to find yourself chasing a static vision you may not care about after a year or two.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
Um,
I will say also it stops moving as you iterate it over and over again, right? So
mhm,
the vision at first was all over the place. Every quarter we'd
mhm.
change it wildly. Now we make very few modifications to it because we know we're getting increasingly confident about what we want. So
Yeah, the
that paradox is there.
the vision is getting clearer and clearer. Like,
Yes.
yeah, and more true to like your true self.
But
Yeah,
that's the toolkit that, a lot of people I think would benefit from if you're trying to get your spouse on the same page about really high level things, how you want to live your life, for example.
yeah. Love that. So, one of the things that I wanted you to explain on this before we jump into like a bit of a deep dive on real estate and some other kind of like business entrepreneurial opportunities that you're definitely more of an expert than me on is the four levers or levers of financial freedom. Because I haven't discussed that on this podcast yet, and I think it's a really powerful framework that is really easy to understand. But once you understand it, you kind of actually can start to pull the levers. But if you're kind of ignorant of it or unaware of it, like you don't proactively utilize it.
Yeah, thanks. So these I don't think these are original. I'm sure I gathered them from other places, but I what I refer to as the four levers are spend less, earn more, invest, or create. Aside from winning, like in a gambling or lottery sense, or finding that cash flow positive spouse, marriage, or inheritance, these are the ways to build wealth in America, right? So and they're very basic. You have to spend less, earn more, invest what you have accumulated, or create an asset in order to become wealthy. And my belief is that anyone can apply any of those four levers at any point in time, but that in a practical sense, some of the at various life stages some of them are easier to apply than others. A middle class income earning family with no assets, for example, no material wealth to invest, is going to have a hard time investing, right? If there's no money to invest, it's going to be hard to invest, right? You need to have before returns becoming a meaningful part of your income generation. You probably get to get close to $1 million in net worth, or 500,000 to $1 million before 10% return on that is a is a significant chunk of your household income, for example. So earn more, attempting to figure out how to go into that career path that could potentially generate more income, and spending less are your two controllable options there. Similarly, creating is a hard option, right? For someone who's maybe an upper middle class income earner working and making 150 to $200,000 a year. Presumably, if you're making that level of income, you've got a very demanding job that is not just taking 40 hours, but 40 hours plus. And so, what you're going to go and spend your nights, early mornings, and weekends competing with entrepreneurs who are just as gifted as you, who are spending their full time efforts creating a business, that's not a good lever to pull in that situation. It can be done, but it's a lower probability thing than just spending less and continuing to focus on that career and maybe investing large increments or putting together a clear investment philosophy. So understanding those four tools and when to apply them, I think is really important, right? A create, for example, could be a great option for both a multimillionaire who's financially independent and wants to go and get to the next level, or for a college kid who doesn't have a job, but might have free time that they could divert away from, I'm going to crunch my studies out, and then I'm going to go in and start figuring out how to start this business with that. So it's just wondering which of those tools is practical to me at this point in time, and which one am I willing to apply. If I'm not going to do anything on any front, I'm not going to get ahead.
Hey there, just a few words about the incredible show sponsors for today's episode, and then we'll dig right back in. This show is brought to you by Feel Free from Botanic Tonics. This product is unlike anything I've ever had before. No joke. It's made with kava root and other ancient plants, and just half a shot gives me this incredible sense of focused flow and productivity. And I love to take just half a shot right before I work out. I take it with my pre-workout, and it takes my workouts to the next level. It is seriously unlike anything I've ever had. It's also an incredible productivity tool for any big work projects that you have, or long periods of time where you just need to be super focused in flow state and get a lot of shit done. So if you want to give this a shot, you can go to botanictonics.com and use code DRAGON at checkout to get 40% off your first order. No joke, 40% off with code DRAGON. That's Feel Free from botanictonics.com, code DRAGON. Feel free, feel good. Yeah, I love that. All right, let's dive into real estate a little bit. One, so I want to kind of put myself in the student seat, because I think even though you're in Colorado, I think you kind of have a good understanding of kind of the scenario in the Bay Area for a lot of people. So, I am a multimillionaire, but I don't own a home. I have technically, like, I own my mom's property, and she rents out some of the rooms that cover her cost of, and I co-own it with my brother. And, she rents out some of the rooms, and it covers her cost of living because she doesn't have any retirement savings saved up, but, she's totally covered, through the home. And same with my dad's property, although he doesn't rent it out, essentially that's going to me and my brother. But I've been considering, like, do I get into real estate, somehow here in the Bay? Do I look for a house hack in the Bay? Do I start investing in, a lower cost of living area? If you were coaching me, someone who's a multimillionaire, has a ton of money invested in stocks, has a fair amount of cash on hand, earns a lot of money, what is kind of my next potential steps to continue to increase both my wealth and my freedom and my optionality without, falling into, the middle class trap again?
Yeah, well, first I'd say let's recognize that San Francisco, Bay Area, New York City, and a couple of these other places are outliers in a national context, right? If if you're looking to become financially independent and continue to build wealth at a rapid clip, you should take the advantages and the realities of the situations and press them, and not attempt to turn the disadvantages into investments, right? So, like in San Francisco, or Bay Area, you're probably able to earn a tremendous income, right? Because those are the opportunities afforded there. But the real estate is a really hard pill to swallow. So I love it. Rent, reasonably affordably, earn as much income, and deploy the assets elsewhere, right? A house hack could be an option, but it's a much lower probability bet for you than it would be for somebody here in Denver, Colorado, where a property is half that price, right? Or even maybe much less. So that's just a reality of the situation, and I think that's something to think through. I love the focus on index funds, like of just plowing the excess capital in there. If you want to add real estate to your portfolio, now we have to get in. Okay, now we get into an even broader discussion about where should I be putting my money in a general sense if I'm not going to invest in local real estate or house hack or these types of things, right? And let's remember, real estate is one of multiple asset classes. We've got stocks, we've got bonds, we've got small businesses, we've got real estate, right? Real estate's one tool in that arsenal. What do you do? And right now, I think people are scared about the prospects in every single one of those asset classes, and rightfully so, right? Cash is not a good bet just to hold your money in cash because inflation has been so high, right? Bonds, interest rates are going up, which means the equity value on current bond portfolios goes down, right? Because I can get a higher interest rate with new debt than I can with old debt, right? Real estate values are starting to come down, right? As are rent projections. The stock market is down 13, 14, 15% year to date in 2022 for the year. It looks like it'll be down around that amount. Where do you go with your money at this point in time, right? So first, you have to believe that real estate is a good alternative in that context. And I think you have to believe it over a 5, 7, 10-year period. I do. I believe that real estate is a good investment alternative relative to that situation. Next, we have to figure out, okay, what do we want real estate to do? We want it to appreciate and we want it to cash flow. How do I want to go on the spectrum where I'm getting the most possible cash flow with the least appreciation prospects? For example, in Flint, Michigan, you can get properties that are very cheap, that have relatively high rents, but that is one of the worst appreciating markets in the country over the last 20 years. Or do I want a tremendous amount of appreciation? I don't really care about cash flow. Therefore, I might go to an Austin, Texas, for example, a place that's growing very rapidly, or Boise, Idaho. Although I'm not sure about the prospects now, but Boise was a great one a couple of years ago. So those are the types of questions we'd ask. Then we have to ask how we finance that purchase, right? So if I'm going right now, we're in a situation where if you want to go into an appreciating market that has good prospects over the next 5 to 7 years, you're probably going to be purchasing a property that's going to produce a 2 or 3% cash on cash return, very low cash flow, unlevered, right? So it's a 2 or 3 or 4 cap without using any debt. Putting debt with a 5 or 6% interest rate on that hurts your returns. The interest is more expensive than the cash flow that you're buying. So this brings up a really interesting set of discussion topics, right? And I think that folks really need to be finding really good deals if they're going to leverage them at this point in time, or they need to, they have to do something creative like a house hack or a short-term rental or medium-term rental, or we can buy the properties all in cash, which is a great option, right? Okay, that's easy. It's lower risk, maybe even higher return, and I'm going to get more cash flow because I don't have this debt service to cover it. Or third, do I get on the debt side and maybe lend to real estate investors and earn the 6, 7, 8, 9, or 10% from a cash flow perspective? So those are all potential options that I'm thinking through personally right now. I intend to purchase real estate, but the only way I'm going to probably buy another property with a great deal of leverage is if I can get the cash flow, the cash and cash return, to be higher than the interest rate.
Gotcha. So a couple follow-ups there for myself. In terms of maximizing the quality of my life, because one of the questions I keep asking myself is like, do I just avoid real estate and just keep plowing money into, index funds? Maybe like put some money into a REIT. Like, is that the best thing if I want to maximize my free time to pursue creative endeavors that may or may not make money?
I think that's true.
Okay.
Yeah. So I run a company that our interest is in helping people learn how to invest in real estate and encourages them to do that. In your case, I think you are a low probability bet for a real estate investor, and here's why, right? To get into real estate investing, you need to spend, in my opinion, 250 to 500 hours immersing yourself in the world of real estate investing. You need to understand what I just meant by cash and cash return, cap rates, how to analyze cash flow in the sense that it's not just your rent minus your mortgage, but it's your rent minus a vacancy allowance, minus allocations for maintenance and CapEx, utilities, all these different components. what the appreciation prospects are, how to screen tenants and do it yourself, how to hire a property manager and make sure
Mm,
that they do it right when that happens, right? These are mental models that you need to develop over time to get really comfortable with. And it's a large investment
mhm,
anytime you're investing in real estate, really, right? In that 500 hours for me, when I got started making $50,000 a year, is not an expensive investment. It's $25 an hour was the value of my time
mhm.
times 500 is what, like $12,500. That's the opportunity cost of that time at that point in my life. If you make $1 million a year, that's 500 times 500. What is that? Let
I have no idea. You're gonna have to
me do
do the
that math real
math.
quick. That's a $250,000 investment that you'd have to make in order to
Mm,
feel really comfortable about investing in real estate. Once you make that payoff, you get it for the rest of your life, right? So, I can invest in real estate. I don't have to redo that education now that my income is higher. But I paid that
mhm,
price when I was not a high income earner, and so now I'm very comfortable with the frameworks for real estate investing for the rest of my life, and I will continue to do that. And the ROI is there for a lot of folks. You can earn greater returns in real estate using leverage, being smart, operating efficiently than you can in things like the stock market. But
mhm,
that spread may not be large enough for someone in your position with these goals. If you want to invest for 30 years, you should make that investment, that educational investment. But if you
mm.
just want it as another means to an end for the passive side of things, I would totally go a more passive route with index fund investing or with REITs.
Yeah, because
But if you do want to spend those 500 hours, come to Bigger Pockets.
absolutely will.
We
That's
got some great stuff.
you know I got you, brother. I'll definitely come to you. So, yeah, and that's really the thing I'm thinking through right now is like, is it a fun, creative pursuit for me to learn the business of real estate? And like, there's a part of
Hmm.
me that is like, yes, that would be really interesting, but I know for a fact right now I'm more interested in my podcast and my fitness and money coaching program. Like those are like endeavors, creative endeavors that are, cash flowing that are really fun and exciting for me. And I want to put more time and energy into them. Unsure if I want to put time and energy into learning the business of real estate. And so like essentially what I'm hearing from you is you're like, Justin, just keep investing in your creative endeavors and put your, your cash flow into the, index funds.
Yeah, I mean, if you're doing what you're doing, you put it into index funds in the next and 10 years go by or 20 years, you might go from I'm going to make this up 2.5 to 5 million in net worth to 10 to 15 million in net worth over 15 years, right?
Mhm.
Real estate might help you get to 25 or 30 million, right?
Mhm.
On that pool if you wanted to go that route. If that's great, but does that really matter in the context of your life and what you're trying to do on your day to day? I don't know, right? And you may get there to your point even faster with your side businesses than real estate. Of course, entrepreneurship is faster than real estate. Real estate's kind of this middle ground between entrepreneurship and passive, index fund investing, if you will, right? It's between those two extremes on a wealth building perspective. So yeah, it's all about what's right for the investor's personal situation. I think our sweet spot is for folks that earn between 50 and 250, $300,000 a year. We're of course open to everyone, but those are the types of folks and that are in earlier stages of their journey toward financial independence. Those are the folks that will benefit from a decade of returns on that educational investment they need to make.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. So tell me a little bit more, off air before we hit record, you talked about like there there's something going on with multifamily real estate as well as, the opportunity in franchises and small businesses. Can you share a little bit more about that on air?
Sure. So these are just two, well, now I'm getting really, this is where I'm getting a little bearish on real estate. I'm a real estate investor. I'm going to continue investing in real estate. I'll probably buy another property in the next year using one of the strategies or lend in the context that I just described earlier. In large apartments, there's an interesting phenomenon now where what I just talked about is true at a commercial scale, right? The cap rates, the cash flow that these apartment complexes are generating on average are less than the interest rates on the debt being used to purchase those properties. That's a really interesting scenario. Why would you buy cash flow in any abstract sense that is more expensive than the debt you're using to purchase that cash flow, right? The only reason you do that is because you think that business is going to grow rapidly over the next couple of years. Or in the case of commercial real estate and multifamily, you think that rents are going to grow dramatically over the next couple of years. And I think we've got a problem brewing in this space here because I do not think rents are going to grow rapidly over the next couple of years. We've got 1,000,006 apartment complex units coming online in the next 12 to 18 months, which is the most since the 1970s. That's massive supply. It'll hit different regions differently, of course. So this is all going to be regional. And then we've also got a very interesting phenomena in household formation in the United States over the last couple of years, where 5 million net new households were formed during COVID. What? How can that be? The population didn't grow by that much. The reason for that has to do with a lot of factors, one of which could be or is the fact that people broke up or moved out from their parents because they couldn't stand being cooped up in the same place with each other for that long, right? That's a household formation
Hmm.
when that happens, right? We're going to give some of that back, right? People are getting back together, all that kind of stuff in the next couple of years. So I think that the household formation projections that folks are coming out with are very questionable. And there's a potential for extreme volatility against those projections over the next couple of years. Even though the population grows, households could decline if there's even a mild recession. People argue that we're already in one, for sure. That seems to be a political thing these days. But if we have a recession or unemployment begins to rise in a material way, we're going to see household formation decline, and that puts a lot of risk on this. So I think there's a real problem brewing in that space, and that the apartment space is one that I'm watching very carefully right now.
Hmm. And what about the opportunities for, people who maybe don't have a creative, entrepreneurial business idea that they want to implement? What are the kind of your thoughts on franchises and purchasing purchasing a small business?
Yeah, so I'll separate the two out. I think that the one of the best asset classes in America right now for an ambitious entrepreneurial hustler who wants to get ahead is this small business world landscape. There are millions of baby boomers who own small businesses, not sexy businesses, right? But things like HVAC repair, carpet cleaning, janitorial services, right? Mechanics, plumbers, these types of businesses. This is their life's work. This is something that they've been doing for 20, 30 years in some cases. There are a dozen or two employees that are people that they know and have worked with for a very long time. There's nobody to buy these businesses. You can buy them for 1, 2 to 3 times cash flow. That's like buying a $300,000 house and having it rent for $100,000 or $200,000 a year. Insane cash flow potential. You can so like if it's a $300,000 business, you could buy it for $300,000 or $600,000, and you don't need $300,000 or $600,000. You need $50,000, a small business loan, and then the seller might finance the rest with a seller carry note. And they want to do that so they can stick on for 2 years and advise you and make sure that their people are taken care of with that. So it's a very, very inefficient market because there's no one to buy this stuff. And I think there's a really good opportunity there for some creative folks to, one, generate a lot of cash flow, and two, aggregate businesses. Imagine buying several of the HVAC companies in a region or janitorial businesses or whatever, and making that into a larger business. That's something you can sell for 4 or 5, 6 times cash flow. So there's an arbitrage opportunity there for the
Hmm.
folks who can put that together. It's hard work, but I think that this is, I can't see another opportunity in this country that is bigger than that right now for somebody who's ready to put some chips on the table and learn business and go after it. If I wanted to get rich quick, I would be starting there.
I love that. And what about this franchise opportunity that you've been thinking about?
Yeah, so franchise is something I actually learned about in the hour and a half immediately preceding this recording. So brand new concept to me. Very very similar model. It's kind of a hybrid with this where you're not going to be able to just like explode the business, but you can do very well. Someone's going to hand you a playbook on how to run a business. You can plop, $50,000 down for the franchise fee plus whatever you need to build out the actual business, and you can earn a good return according to a formula. So this might be great for somebody who's like, I'm not really an entrepreneur, but I'm not quite satisfied with my day job, and I want something that gives me a little bit gives me a path to more flexibility or owning my own business. This can be a really great option for folks. So, and there's also a resale market again, probably at that 2 to 3 times cash flow level, although it will vary by franchise, of course.
Hey there, just a few words about the incredible show sponsors for today's episode, and then we'll dig right back in. Today's show is brought to you by Fit Rich Vegan. If you're ready to get in the best shape of your life, double your income, and 10x your savings and investments, then this is the coaching program for you. But wait a minute, Dragon. Isn't this your coaching program? Heck yeah, it is. I spent the last 8 years mastering my fitness and my finances, and I've built an incredible coaching program with an incredible team to help you get the body of your dreams and finally achieve that level of financial success that you've been seeking. So, if you want to find out if you're a good fit for the program, go to fitrichvegan.com and book your free consultation today. Or you can just DM me on Instagram with the words Fit Rich Vegan and we can chat about if it's going to be a good fit for you. I'm committed to empowering people to actually achieve their fitness and financial goals. I spent the last 20 years trying to figure this out on my own. And what I realized is the key to doing it is not doing it alone. You have to have coaches, you have to have mentors, and you have to be a part of masterminds. And that's exactly what Fit Rich Vegan has. It has coaches, mentors, and it is a mastermind. So, again, if you're ready to book your free consultation today, go to fitrichvegan.com or drop me a DM on Instagram. Awesome. I did want to ask you because you brought this up on another podcast, and I just thought it was something that hasn't been shared on my podcast yet. And I just really like the framing of it. What are the top things that like really successful people do? More so than the people who aren't successful.
Interesting. Yeah, I think that I think that in a broad sense, everyone's like, "Oh, here are the 10 things you need to do to be successful. I got to meditate, I got to write my goals, do my goals, I got to plan my day, I got to work out, I got to read, I got to network or whatever with that," right? I think you can make a list of 15 to 20 such activities that would fall into that bucket.
Hmm.
And I think what you'll find is that successful people do some combination of those things
Hmm.
on a very, very regular basis. Not every CEO or entrepreneur or whatever will set goals or journal or meditate, but you'll find that almost every one of them does one of those things or several of those things on a daily basis. So, Justin, is that true for you?
Yeah. I mean, so I read like a ridiculous amount of books. Like I'm constantly reading either both like reading or listening to audiobooks. So I know for a fact that at a disproportionate level, I just read significantly more than most people. And I think that's absolutely one of the key things. I do journal every single morning. I do meditate every single day. I haven't missed a day of meditation since I think the middle of 2014 or 2015. Like, so
How
I,
about goals?
yeah, I always have goals
Do
and
you do
I'm
goals?
yeah, and I'm always like updating them, making sure that they're still the goal that I want to go for. I set, like what are the lead and lag indicators around achieving those goals? So like what are the things that I have to do every day and every week to hit those? And then I get less worried about like actually reaching the goal and like am I doing the activity based on my lead and lag indicators that will lead me to achieving that goal, and then it just like happens. Like I don't have to worry about like it might take me longer than I want, but I will get there if I just keep
Mhm.
doing taking the actions that is going to get me to the goal. Whereas I think people get like oftentimes the goal seems so big and so far away and they never get to like what is the like the lead indicator or the lag indicator that they need to start tracking, and then just focus on that like little, because usually the lead and lag indicator like in sales, how many like prospects did you reach out to in a day? You know, and that's like a lead indicator. So like the more of those you do, the more likely you're going to close a sale. And closing a sale is a lag indicator. So how much sales have you actually completed? And so like I really just look at like anything. So, you can do fitness as one as well. So like I know that by tracking what I eat and exercising, by the tracking what I eat, like that is literally going to lead me to being the fitness shape that I want. And then by weighing myself and checking my body fat every day, that is the lag indicator to let me know like how close I am to my fitness goal.
Love it. So can I ask you one question
Absolutely.
before we wrap up with all this?
Yeah.
I am beginning to noodle on my goals for 2023, and one
Mm,
of them I think is around becoming considerably advancing my skill set with respect to nutrition and health. I
mhm.
work out a good amount. I'm reasonably fit and all that kind of stuff, but I don't track what I eat, and I don't really know beyond like I clearly know what healthy is, like a healthy salad. Okay, that's much better for me than a burger with all this, but I don't really know how to think about like tracking macros or these other types of things. Where can I go to like get a good crash course in education in that? And how can I hire where can I go to hire a nutritionist, for example, that can help me with that? So hopefully this is setting you up for some fun.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like the number one. So here's what I did. I was like in the same boat as you around 33. Like I had a general idea of what was healthy and what wasn't, but like I had no idea how to like truly be in the shape that I wanted to be in. Like I was like for years, for decades, like trying to achieve that like dream body, like the abs and the muscles and looking great on camera with the shirt off. And like, I would work out ridiculous amounts and thought I was eating perfectly well. Then I worked with an online coach, and in about 4 months, I got the body of my dream in 2014, and I've been in incredible shape year round since 2014. So, my recommendation to you is to find an online coach that is living the lifestyle that you could see yourself living. Like, oh, I like how they eat. I like how they live their life. I like how they work out, and just work with that person. And in 3 to 6 months, they will teach you everything you need to know. That one time investment will then serve you, from age 31 or 32 till you're like dead. So that's my number one
Okay.
recommendation is stop trying to figure out yourself. Like, and it's so much better to have a coach because then they're going to give you the real time feedback. Like you could go like down infinite rabbit holes of like books and YouTube channels and all this like bullshit. If you just invest in a coach, like I like still invest in fitness coaches when I want to go to another level or do something new with my body that I haven't done before. It's just like I know that investment is going to pay me back like 10x if not more. So that's my suggestion.
Yeah, this is the kind of stuff that's worth spending money on for sure. Where can I go to find those coaches? Do I just Google this? Like, what do I type into Google to begin the search, and where do I go?
I would literally look on Instagram because then you can actually get a sense, Instagram or YouTube, you can get a sense of like, do they work out in a way that would be fun for you? Do they eat in a way that would be fun for you? Because to me, it's like ridiculous when people like do these crash course diets that like they can do like an 8 week boot camp and work out 2 hours a day, 7 days a week, and like cut their calories to 1,200 calories, and they can lose like, freaking 20 pounds in 8 weeks, but then it all comes right back because that's not sustainable. So like what you want to do is
Mhm.
identify a coach, and Instagram is great because they share it all in their pictures, their stories, their reels, etc. So for
What term do I search? Type into Instagram or hashtag do I search in order to
fitness
find these
coach.
people? Just like fitness coach? Okay,
Yep,
great. Yeah.
fitness coach.
Sorry, I,
And
I was
like
like, is it it's not nutrition, it's fitness. Okay.
Like, you could literally do, like literally, I'm curious if you search, like, fitness coach rugby, and maybe there's a coach that's a previous rugby player who's no longer, like,
Those
playing
days are over.
yeah, but, like, he's still in incredible shape. So, he likes the same
Yeah.
type of, like, workouts and energy, but now it's done in a more sustainable way, right? So, that's would be my
Mhm.
recommendation because, like, how fun would it be to do that? So
That's really good advice. I'm gonna take that, immediately following this. That's awesome.
awesome. Well, I know we're at time. Best place to find you online is
You can find me at BiggerPockets. Just type in Scott Trench, and I typically will respond there. And you can also find me on Instagram at Scott_Trench.
wonderful. Any last thought, comment, or request to the audience?
Nope. Justin, how old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
40.
40, right. My 8-year goal is to look like you at 40 at this point. So I'm gonna figure that out. That starts with the question I asked today. So
Yeah, dead
yeah,
serious.
you
At
you you are
32.
an- you are an inspiration. You are incredibly fit, very successful. A pleasure to be here and talk with you. And I admire all that you've accomplished and how you are able to sustain this incredible lifestyle and fitness level.
Thank you so much,
That's
brother.
my
Well,
parting thought.
I really appreciate you coming on the show. You dropped so much knowledge, actionable insight. Like, hopefully, we'll save a few people, if not a lot of people, from falling into the middle class trap. Definitely, we'll have you back on in the future. And you have an awesome rest of the day, brother.
You as well, sir.
Take care. Bye. Thanks for tuning in. And remember, literally everything can be used as an opportunity to learn, to heal, to grow, and to transform. So whatever is going on in your life, choose to consciously and proactively harness that energy and use it to alchemize your life to the next level. If you enjoyed the show, please share it with a friend or on your favorite social media and leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. As always, you can find me at Justin David Carl on Instagram and all the socials, as well as at alchemizelife.com on the web. Until the next time, sending you lots of energy and plenty of dragon magic.